Hello everybody. Hello, how you guys doing? Welcome in to another Pixo stream. I'm Iris Sculpts. What's going on, Pac-Manies? Hey, are we gonna print a 3D print of Yoda? Not today, not during today's stream, but I have sculpted a Darth Grogu, which is actually the opening starting soon page. Which is pretty fun, actually. I have that right over here. I can actually show you guys. Started off by showing how you guys doing. Twitch Cat, Ryan, what's happening? Here, if you guys haven't seen it, this is the Darth Grogu that I did a little while ago. Pretty cool. How are you guys doing? Happy Sunday. So before we get started, I just want to make a quick announcement, let you guys know that if you are not subscribed or following the Pixo YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, any other social medias, hop on that. Go ahead, follow them, subscribe, because when we go live, you guys get notified. And then besides me, there's obviously a bunch of other artists that are super talented. So please make sure to follow, subscribe, do all that good stuff so that way you're always up to date, especially when Pixo does updates. Anytime there's an update, they usually do an announcement, so you'll keep your software current as much as possible. You love that print so much. Yeah, it's so cool, isn't it? It's one of my favorites. The concept artist was Max Davenport, so shout out to that guy. Super cool dude. He let me work off his concepts, oh man, like half a year ago, and it was so awesome. Came out great. So today, guys, we're going to be continuing ZBrush Core. So we did a ZBrush Core mini challenge, sculpted a little mushroom dude. Now we're in ZBrush Core, where I'm working on this Cthulhu, and we're going to just continue in Core a little bit. I started actually really liking Core, so I really wanted to get more into it. And also, too, for anybody who's looking to subscribe or to buy Core, I can hopefully answer some of those questions that you might have about it. So, but right now, I want to get into some detailing and flesh out the base a little bit more. And yeah, so let's get into it. Let's sculpt. How's everybody else today? It's Sunday. Hopefully everybody had a good weekend. Let's start with his feet. Let's get his feet looking gross. Got some reference always. Let's pull up some reference. There we go. Just start doing. I'm just going to use a clay buildup mainly for building up a lot of his simple details and stuff. Actually, let's get the move brush. And let's turn on backface. So brush and backface mask. This will help me kind of move some of the material around without really ruining any of the underlying mesh. So I'm able to kind of just get a more controlled move, especially on some of these thin areas. But kind of work turning it on and off a little bit to kind of help move the overall mesh too. Smooth that down. We're going to bounce back and forth between that. Might not be necessary here. Hello from Brazil. How you doing? Greetings from Peru. Hey, how are you guys doing? Well, welcome, welcome. Nice to meet you. I'm doing well. Just gonna just have some fun sculpting today. Yeah, we're just working on this Cthulhu, which is pretty cool. Kind of went with more of like a dad bod Cthulhu. You always see Cthulhu's like super powerful, and I mean, because they are, but you always see him like this kind of crazy pose. So I tend to go against the grain, and I try to do something a little bit different. And we will be 3D printing him. And since my theme is basically keeping 3D printing in mind, what I'm really looking for right now is just locking in all the forms and shapes. But I also want to make sure I don't have any thin points or thin edges that would fail during a 3D print. So like his toes here are just kind of really thin and not looking so good. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of beef some of this up a little bit. Get more monster feet. El Salvador. Nice, man, nice. Hey, any tips for Ornamental details. Yeah, so basically, if you want to try to get any type of filigree or any type of small details, work with subdivisions. Subdivisions are going to give you a better grouping of the vertices and faces, a whole detail better. So I would definitely say get your main design done in Dynamesh or any other method that you work on, and then from there go ahead and just start subdividing and getting those details popping. And also, too, focus on layering your details up. Start with big shapes, and then work with smaller shapes. So, for example, like, let's say if I wanted to add some kind of design on him, start with, like, the standard brush, for example. And let's turn on Lazy Mouse, which we already have on. Should be pretty good. Let's go lazy up a little bit. Like, go with, like, a bigger brush, get, like, some more of the details and subdivide up. And then maybe from there, start working on some of the smaller ones. Just that subdivision's going to hold it a whole lot better. So that's my main tip for any type of filigree or ornamental details. And if you're going to 3D print, make sure you cut your details really deep. The deeper the detail, the easier it will be when it prints out. They'll be a lot more visible. Not a problem. All right. Like right now, I'm working on just getting the base shape of his foot. And he's a monster of sorts, as he be classified. That's like, it's like not giving him enough credit, but you know what I mean? Like, he has monster elements to him, so we'll just get the shape and then we'll start getting some scales and stuff working on him. I'll smooth down the areas I broke. Now, with ZBrush Core, you do have shortcuts. With ZBrush Core Mini, you don't have shortcuts for your brushes, but with ZBrush Core, you do. So B, M, and V will be your move brush. And let's go back to, okay, we already have the backface mask on. I'll bring some of this out. There we go. There we go. You see here, we kind of started detailing a little bit, getting some idea what we wanted to do with him at the top. And now we're going to kind of work our way down a little bit. So BCB will be for clay buildup. We'll get more of those in there. So he should have some bones or something right here, so we'll kind of lift these areas up. I might actually like give him some nasty toenails too. I think that'd be fun. There we go. And looking at my own ankle bones, the inner one is a little bit lower than the outer one. I use myself for reference all the time too. It's a big anatomy tip if you're like sculpting hands or feet. Don't be afraid to look at yourself. Hey, Kamara, hello. There we go. I'm just kind of looking at it all. This is the part too where right before you really get into details, you kind of want to start looking at your overall shape, all your major forms, make sure they look good before moving too far forward. Let's get some hand anatomy in here. Boop. It's actually... Let's go back and let's get Alpha 6, one of my favorite alphas for the clay buildup. Hi from Argentina. Nice sculpt. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Welcome in. Happy Sunday. Yeah, we're just working on getting this thing really start popping. We've got a good chunk of way to go today, so hopefully we'll get pretty far. Up in, I'm using an IMM brush for cloth details, but it gives me pretty bad results. Like, I don't have enough polys. I have 2 million. Any reason why? Using a simple sphere to test. That's a really good question. It's hard to kind of speculate exactly why that would be. That's more for like me. I'd have to see it to really give you a solid answer. But my guess is that while you have 2 million polys, it's possible that a lot of the details are really tight together, and that's just not enough to showcase the way it is. What I recommend trying to do is maybe ZBrush your sphere, or try using Sculptors Pro if possible. IMM brushes, that just kind of pulls out. But yeah, without really seeing it, it's hard to kind of give you a good answer. But I would say, maybe try using a VDM brush instead for cloth details, or keep them really simple, lower it down. But yeah, that's without actually seeing it, it would be a little hard to speculate. But I would say I would say that maybe just double check everything. Try Z-remeshing it. Maybe test it on a Dynamesh model just to see what you're getting. Yeah. I think it's a great program. I'm sculpting to hear you and see you. Nice. Sometimes leave my desk while TV is on. Guess why? I leave my TV on all the time, man. I am trying to design a unique avatar that could eventually use for VR. Are there any technical things I should keep in mind? Yes. If you're going to use anything that's going to be animated in any way, shape, or form, make sure you have a nice clean sculpt, but then you're going to want to focus on retopology, getting a nice solid mesh that deforms well. So really study how to prep for animation, how to prep your models for animation, and then from there, do a lot of tests, trial and error. But, all right. All right. We're going to use the bracket key a little bit just to get a different size here. Let's get some knuckles. There we go. Drop this down. We're going to smooth this. Hold shift. So anytime you want to use, if you want to draw a straight line in ZBrush, start by pressing like you're going to go ahead and add topology. As soon as you press, hold shift, and that'll give you a line. Keep pressing on your tablet, let go shift, and that'll draw you a straight line every time. And I use that technique a lot for doing bones and stuff like that. So you can just kind of like that. Topology, my nemesis, yeah. Why didn't you stay symmetrical before you pose while adding details for both hands and etc.? So it really just comes down to preference for me personally. I tend to pose more or sculpt more asymmetrically when in poses. I feel like I get better results when I do that. If it's just for a statue work, I like to sculpt asymmetrically. If it's for a game model or anything that might get animated, then I completely sculpt symmetrical all the way, because then I'm going to have to retopologize and get all the maps baked, and it's way easier to do that on a symmetrical model. But for me, when I'm doing just statue work, I like to do asymmetrical. Plus, it builds the skill set of fixing models, because anytime you sculpt a model in symmetry that's perfectly symmetrical, and it's beautiful, and you're like high detail, then you go to pose it, you're going to break it, hands down. Doesn't matter how clean your topology will be, you will break it, and you need to kind of fix it. So don't be afraid to sculpt asymmetrically. For me, it's more preference this way, completely up to you, but it's just practice. I don't speak Spanish, I'm sorry, but I can maybe copy and paste into Google Translate just to get an idea of your question. Good night. In modeling, which is better, Z-sphere or blockout? I think that's all preference. For me, I like doing a blockout. I think a blockout is just a little bit more effective for me, but I've also done a lot of just trying to use a sphere, pull it out, dynamesh it. Both, I think, are good. I think it just matters on what works best for you. Try them both, see what happens. If you like the results of one over the other, then stick with that. It really is just a preference at that point. Good night, hello. Okay. I'm gonna take the move brush again. And let's go ahead and turn off backface. Because if you're trying to push material in using the move brush, you cannot use backface whatsoever. So you are welcome. All right. I'm going to go ahead and select this section right here so I can use the dam standard, which is BDS. And we're just going to go ahead and start adding some more creases. Let's actually lower the intensity a little bit. It's a bit high. So we're getting some deformation lines here for his wrists. Let's get that cutting in there a little bit. Any tips on buying your first printer? Like what to keep in mind and such? It's a great question. So when you're getting ready to 3D print, I would take a look at what method you want to use first. So if you want to get straight into resin printing, or if you want to get into FDM or filament printing, really that's the first thing you want to kind of take a look at your work and see what you want to use. For me, with statue work, resin printing trumps filaments. However, I have been known to use both media together, kind of a mixed mosh of like the base is printed in filament and the other's printed in resin, but I digress. The thing you want to keep in mind is what your budget is, and overall look at customer reviews. Those are big ones. Also, maybe jump into a couple communities, groups like on Facebook or something that would say, hey, see what people are using, what people suggest. Really just become part of the community. You can learn so much. I won't name drop any, but I mean, for the most part, if you're looking to get into resin, take a look at Elgoo. If you're looking to get into, I said I wasn't going to name drop and I just did. But really just do your homework, check your budget, and then just really read reviews and see what people say. At the end of the day, it's a learning curve. You're going to have to, if you have no machining experience or no printer experience, you're really just going to kind of want to do some research and see what how people feel about the machines or the filament or the resin, and then, just kind of make an educated decision. It's hard to give a definitive answer because it's such a big community with a lot of stuff to learn. So it's definitely lots of research, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Compare machines too. There's like Anycubic, Elgoo, Creality, Prusa, there's a bunch. Just kind of see what sticks within your budget from there, and then research. Post-processing as well. If you're doing resin, then that's going to actually take more cleanup. Filament, not so much, but then again, you don't get as good detail with filament as you can with resin, but you can get away with a lot with filament, so there's so much. Okay. Well, so this is ZBrush, and this is a Pixologic stream. So we're gonna try to keep the questions related to Pixologic. But if you want to know my opinion on some of their other programs out there, feel free to hit me up on my personal channels and such. But ZBrush is awesome. It leads the industry 100% when it comes to sculpting. So that's my answer. Yeah. Are there any ways to block out hands that doesn't frustrate? Or have I asked that before? That's a great question. And the answer is practice. Practice and anatomy study. You know, at the end of the day, in the beginning when you're learning something new, there's always chances for frustrations that are going to happen. But try not to look at it that way. Just look at each attempt as one step closer at getting to your goals. I find that even after 5 years of sculpting, I still will sometimes dread blockouts of hands or feet. Those are like my nemesis, because hands in themselves are kind of like a character all by itself. So if you have a full character, you know, like the face is so much detail, there's so much going on, the hands are so expressive. So just treat a hand like a character, take your time, and it just gets easier after a while. Yeah. Oh yeah, one big consideration for me is the fact that I live in a small studio apartment, so in order to use resin, I need to go build some sort of makeshift fume for hood. Exactly, yeah. What's a good size document to work, or at least the standard? Honestly, I'd say ZBrush's default size is pretty good to work with. In ZBrush Core, we don't really get a chance to adjust that, but in normal ZBrush, I just leave it alone. I don't worry about scale until after I have the model built. That's just me, though. That's preference. And I think ZBrush scale starts at 2mm. I think that's how it defaults. Yeah. But what I would recommend is that play around with, you know, some of the settings that you like, and then when you find a thing that you like, just save out that size as a project, and then load that project on startup, and then you can just work in that scale all the time. That's the beauty thing about making projects. You can create up startup projects and customize it to whatever you need to. So if you want to have it set to 1 inch each time, just do that. Thank you so much. Yeah, no problem. Hello, Sculptor's looking awesome, man. Thanks, Gats3D. How are you doing? Yeah, not a problem. There we go. Okay. To get a little bit of hand wrinkles happening here. Let's get that wrist bone in here. That's pretty important if you ask me. Let's get that in just a little bit right there. Put that down, soften that up a little bit. Let's go ahead and Control-Shift-Tap. Let's look at it from afar. Need one right here as well. Doing good, staying busy. Nice. Sneaking in personal projects between work. You and me both, man. I've been very busy this week with work and such, so on a big project, which is nice, but yeah. When you do it 9 to 5, makes personal projects a little harder. Just got an airbrush for my birthday. Nice. Happy birthday, man. Now go with MG Barbo. Now we just need the right paints, an air compressor, and something to practice on before I don't run the model. Yeah, lots of practice. When you get a new tool, practice first. That's great. Airbrush is awesome. I love using Airbrush. I'm not known for painting all of my models, but when I do paint them, I definitely love using an airbrush. All right, let's go ahead and save that. Hey, Tinta Slug. Hey, hold on, how you doing? How's it going? What are we working on today? I am working on this Cthulhu. We're going to be prepping for 3D prints, so kind of working on more details today. Then I want to focus in on... I don't know if I'm married to this base or not, so kind of working on some stuff. Really want to get him detailed and then do a little bit more. We're going to be doing some thick skin detailing today, so instead of using alphas, I'm going to use thick skin to get bigger bumps and stuff. Personal project to stop sleeping forever. Absolutely. I agree. I'm a traditional sculptor. What do you suggest to start learning digital sculpting? I live in Puerto Rico. No schools here to learn ZBrush. What I recommend to start learning digital sculpting, pop on YouTube, you know, look at the basis of sculpting. But go ahead and download, I'm going to assume you don't have ZBrush. Download ZBrush Core Mini. It's completely free. You don't need to pay a dime. And just go ahead and you already have sculpting knowledge. Just kind of learn the UI, see what the brushes do, and then take the knowledge you have of sculpting and try to apply it within ZBrush. And then just see what you get. And if you do more character stuff, you know, the anatomy, all that's important. Just kind of rely on those fundamentals, but just play. Just play with the software. Do not worry about, you know, what you get. Just kind of learn the UI, and then from there, start applying that knowledge. And I think I've seen a lot of traditional sculptors get really far really quickly within ZBrush. Digging the tunes? Nice, thanks. It's my fallback playlist. What's the best keyboard position setup? That's a great question, man. I think that answer is completely unique to each person. I'm right-handed, so I have my tablet here on my right side, and then I have my left hand, and I have it slightly angled at like a 40-degree angle, I guess. And that way I can just use the keys, the Alt, the Control, and Shift fairly well. I tried using my tablet buttons, but I don't like them, so I don't use them. So, yeah. Find something that's comfortable, but also, too, like my chair, you know, you want to stretch, but I have an armrest right here so that I can always just relax my arm, because after a while, you get a lot of shoulder tension, a lot of shoulder stress, repetitive motion. So, you know, don't be afraid to like find a comfortable position, because you're going to be here for a while. Hey, Talton, how you doing? Oh, did I just move my color? I did. Okay, so let's actually, I'm going to start playing with some thick skin, guys. So I have a subdivision level of 5. I'm going to turn on thick skin. And now I'm going to go ahead and just estimate what a good size would be. I'm going to go ahead and solo this out. I want to start putting on some big bumps on him. So those of you who don't know what thick skin is a feature in ZBrush, it's also in ZBrush Core, that allows you to have a limiter of how much extra clay you can build up. And so as I build up and build up, it's going to actually cap at some point, giving me kind of this result. And you can adjust this on the fly. Let's back that up a little bit. Let's come up here. So I can actually add in like little bumps and stuff like that, which we're going to be using for texture. So I'm actually going to smooth down some of the texture that I have here so that I can get a little bit more of the surface on top. And thick skin also accounts for the information that's underneath it. So if I wanted to smooth this down, I have to turn it off, then turn that on, and you can see now it's not equating for that information underneath. So it's a pretty cool feature. I really like it. Give him some weird bumps and stuff like that. Thank you so much. I would look into ZBrush for love watching your work again. Thank you for the information. Not a problem. Absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and get this up here like this. And see, I can't add any more on top, so I'm just going to create some odd shapes. And I'm actually thinking that might be a little too thick. No, you know what? I think that'll be fine. Control Shift to bring back some of that information. Get me second guessing myself. There we go. We'll add a little bit of a pattern here, and then we'll see how we like that. I'm actually kind of referencing crocodiles and such. See if I like that. Maybe we'll go a little bit smaller on some of them. And let's go with intensity a little bit higher. Yeah, there we go. That's better. Let's do something like that. Let's see. Today I'm working on my self-portrait. Yesterday was a speed sculpt. Today I'm working on refining the likeness and adding more detail. That's awesome. Hair will be dead last. Yeah, I feel you there. I did do several variations of myself as different characters, though. That was a lot of fun. Nice. You don't like tablet buttons either? No. Tablet buttons are weird, man. Tablet buttons. Yeah. Not a fan. Okay. Actually, just kind of zooming in a little bit, getting some more. Okay, let's back this up just a bit. So right now, I'm just kind of playing with some of this design. I'm not set on anything out the gate. I'm going to try some different ideas, see which one works. My method of sculpting really does rely on the play around and see what you get. What just happened? Oh, I selected something else. My fingers are going all over the place. So maybe we'll try something like this. Let's go high intensity. Build that up pretty quickly. Yeah. Yeah, I'm digging that. Let's see what we got. Let's see if this works for you. Let's see, hello, can you give me some first basics for sculpting, like anatomy, for example? Yeah, absolutely. So, first things first, when it comes to anatomy, you actually want to do a lot of study reference, but what I actually recommend doing really early on, it's something that I started doing when I first started sculpting, was a lot of times here, what I'll recommend is pull up a muscle chart of sorts and go ahead and work with, yeah, go ahead, pop in here. ZBrush comes with a basic base mesh. And what I recommend doing is actually taking your damn standard brush and get an anatomy chart or an écrasé, something you can either hold or something you can look at. And then to just start learning anatomy, just go ahead and take a look at the chart. Pick a muscle area, like let's say the deltoid right here, and then just start kind of drawing out these muscles. Kind of see where they all lie. Come in here, just draw the shapes of where these muscles are. You're not really worried about details too much, but notice that, you know, on a deltoid you have 3 heads with a deltoid. So just go to Google and type in, you know, human anatomy and start familiarizing yourself with these muscles. The bicep, how the bicep comes through here and comes right back down. Bicep means 2, so there is 2 muscles here. So kind of just come through. You're not looking for accuracy. Here's the pectoral. You have the major pec, and then the minor comes through, and the pec actually attaches right in this area to the so it attaches on the clavicle and actually comes down and across to the breastplate, and it comes up like this. You also have a underlying pec muscle, a really small, tiny one that nobody really talks about, but it is there. That actually helps give your chest girth. So kind of just go through, look at your lats, how the lats actually wrap around the body. The back, guys' backs tend to look like Christmas trees, especially if they're really shredded with like, you know, 5 to 10% body fat. So you kind of start just pinpointing these. You're not going for overall crazy accuracy in the beginning. You're just trying to find the landmarks and just see how you see them and then correct it to that anatomy. Go through each time, and each time you do this exercise where you're just kind of going through and trying to find each muscle group. Here's the abdomen, and this part goes up this way and actually connects to the back here. This kind of stretches up a little bit. The more you do this, the more you'll actually recognize the muscle groups, the easier it will be to apply them to your sculpt. It's a daily exercise that I would do pretty much every morning when I get up and start practicing. And it's just helpful, you know. And you just kind of pinpoint it and look at it. Same with the forearms, you know. See how the muscle comes through and rotates, comes around, how the hand will twist, how this part connects up in this area. So you're just kind of recognizing how the muscles are. Here's the tricep back here. So just go through each time and just kind of practice it. Reference lots of anatomy charts. And once you do that and you just draw them out, once you understand where the muscles are in the body, the easier it is to actually start applying that knowledge during your sculpts. The other tip too when sculpting as a beginner, sculpt with the muscle, not against it. And what do I mean by that? Is basically the pectoral muscles, the striations or the muscle fibers, they actually go across the chest like this. If you try to sculpt the chest this way, it's just gonna look weird. Even if you smooth it out and you're like, okay, it just looks kind of funky. Get a lower intensity and then just start sculpting with the muscle fibers, how the muscle fibers actually connect. And then it doesn't matter if you're sculpting a super shredded guy or a soft female or even a creature. Once you get those muscle striations happening and you start smoothing it down, it actually looks a lot more natural from afar than it would if you were to just try to like bulk it up a little bit, smooth it down. That looks really odd and lumpy. So follow the muscle fibers. And yeah, I mean, we can go all day on that. All right, let me go ahead and open up my other project. And also too, big tip, take your time, don't rush. You know, it's okay to make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. It's okay to look at your work and say, yeah, I'm not really sure if I like that 100%. It's okay. You know, just practice makes permanent. It's the best approach. Sorry, I missed a bunch of questions. Let's see. I have one question. How many hours does it take to complete one project from beginning to end? Something like this, what you're doing right now. It takes... Okay. So I'm gonna say if it's for a client, you know, if you're working with a studio, you usually have a time crunch. Average time crunch is a few weeks, depending on what project you're working on. So 2 to 4 weeks on average is usually my, when I get a call, either freelance and I'm working with a studio. Like I'm working on a project right now for a company, Coach.com. Obviously can't talk about the project, but they were like, we have to have this done in 3 weeks. You're like, okay, great. 3 weeks, let's do it. However, for personal projects and in the beginning phase when you're learning, take as much time as you need. Like I think that's more important. You're going to get faster over time. So try not to sit there and dwell on like, oh, I need to have this done in a couple days. Like my biggest mistake in my first year of sculpting was trying to get it all done in my lunch break between, between working. It takes a lot longer than that. So don't stress too much on it. Take your time, practice. But as you start getting better, then maybe start testing yourself and saying like, oh, I wonder if I can get this done in 16 hours, broken up into 5 days. But I wouldn't worry about that so much in the beginning. I would focus more on, getting the technique down, and speed comes over time. Is using ZBrush one of your favorite tools to use for projects in school? Heck yeah, absolutely. I didn't actually go to full study, but I was playing with Mesh Project Brush. Added the muscles from reference and then focused on the tuck and wrap of each one. The move top. Oh, that's a great method too, man. See, like, going back to, detailing, I don't know if I actually like this. At the end of the day, I'm trying it. It's not my favorite thing, so we're going to try a different approach. And that's okay. So, like, let's say we got all this way with thick skin and we hate it. I don't like it anymore. Drag this all the way down to 0 and brush over it and it completely erases what you did. So thick skin is also like a non-destructive workflow, which is great. So we're going to start over a little bit. We're going to maybe use thick skin and add like a little bit of like saggy skin fold or something. Let's try that. Let's see what we can get. And we'll use the standard brush for that. And let's apply a little bit more. Let's see. Do you suggest a tablet with its own screen so you don't have to look at a monitor or tablet? I say it's preference. I prefer a screen, but I've used both, and at the end of the day, I think it's just preference. Screen tablets are obviously a little bit more expensive, but if you're just getting started, a tablet is a tablet. Just start with a tablet. Doesn't matter which one it is, and then go from there. But for me, I ended up liking the screen tablet because for me, it reminds me a lot of just like, of drawing and, oh yeah, I'm liking that. That's good. Okay. Yeah. Reminds me a lot of drawing and, putting my hands on the clay, so to speak. There we go. Not a problem. Let's see. I've been binging Raph's streams and he likes to add color as soon as possible. Do you see the downside to that? What do you do personally? I actually sometimes will add color. Sometimes I will just... At the end of the day, if I have a color scheme in mind, I put that color down as fast as possible. I think it helps see the overall. But I have a lot of photo retouching experience, and 90% of the time, we always worked in black and white because you're able to see a lot more of the contrast and the shapes. Color sometimes can be distracting, but like I said, if I have a color scheme in mind, the color can help me see flaws and can help me see the direction that I want to go. So again, I kind of bounce between the two. For this project, I'm actually liking them in black and white, and so I haven't really thought of a color scheme to put them in. So I'm just kind of leaving them as such and more focused on the depth of the details, because I really want them to stand out when they 3D print. So I'm more just focused on the silhouette and the shapes at the moment. And to be honest, I don't know if I actually want to color him. I'm kind of torn on that as well, which is okay. You don't have to color everything. But if you're going to work with color, yeah, it doesn't hurt to get it there as fast as possible. So I totally agree with that. Maybe like a coral look. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I like that. Hey, great tips. I just got here, and it's probably been asked, but on-screen keyboard is... Oh, which on-screen keyboard is that? Are you actually using that keyboard, or does it just show which hotkeys you use? Yeah, so the onboard keyboard that you guys are seeing right now, that just shows what I'm doing as I'm doing it. So I'm holding Alt at the moment, spacebar. That way you guys can follow a little bit closer with what I'm doing, because I say the hotkeys a lot. So it's kind of going on the approach that hopefully it is just a little bit helpful to see when I'm doing something. And to answer your question on which one it is, I think it's called OBS Overlay. That's what I referenced. I just literally Googled, OBS keyboard overlay and came up with a pretty good link, and then I just downloaded it. Pretty simple instructions. Yeah, see, I'm actually liking the wrinkles a lot better, so we're gonna go with that, and I'm just using thick skin to kind of put a few here, a few there. I think that's working out the way I want it to. And like I said, with those muscles, I'm just following the fibers a little bit and how the skin should wrap and fold. Actually, maybe want to give them a little bit more sagginess right here. I'm actually capping on the thick skin, so I'm going to go up a little bit more. There we go. Let's see. Are you using the thickness tool? How does it work? Yes, I am using the thickness tool. I'm using thick skin, and how it works is when it's turned off, it takes a look. Your model's as it is. You can add a bunch of clay, etc. When you turn it on, what it does is it takes a look at your model, and then it, with the thickness slider, actually is projecting what I call a clay limiter. So it's going to limit the amount of clay that you can build up or cut into your model. And it is history capped, so you can back it up to when you turned it on and off. But basically, when it turned on and your limiter's set, you can go ahead and just start building up a bunch, and then it caps off. And then that's it. You can't add any more to that area, but you can add around it. If you don't like that, and you don't want to Control Z because you did a bunch of work over here, you can kick that to 0 and actually paint that away, if so desired. So yep, I don't want that. So it's a pretty nifty tool, pretty straightforward. Nice. Hey, how you doing, Inspire? Welcome in. Not a problem. Hey, do you jump in character mock in 3D or design on paper in Photoshop first? Honestly, I actually just kind of mock up in 3D as I go. I take a bunch of references and poses and stuff, so I use Pure Ref for this. I'll just take a bunch of references that I think are going to be helpful in my design. I start with 1 or 2 concepts I really like, so you can see, like, this is the pose I really liked. And then I have all these different character references. anatomy. I was looking at veins here. I was looking at different body types for the thickness of him. So I really just kind of sculpt on the fly, I guess, when I'm designing my own stuff. And see, like here, I got some monster feet reference and what people have done in the past, which helps guide me on doing something different. So I use lots of reference. It's called Pure Ref. It's completely free. Yeah, use it all the time. Super great. There we go. Gonna get a little bit more fuller here in his pec muscle. Gonna go ahead and actually, no, I don't have polygroups here. Ugh. That's my bad. There we go. Super glad to see you using ZBrush Core. Was worried that it wouldn't be enough for what I wanted to do. No, ZBrush Core is amazing, guys. Yeah. So I'm glad that people want to see it too. I feel like it's underutilized a little bit. And that's how I started. Before I got full version of ZBrush, I was using ZBrush Core for about 2 years, almost 2 years. Yeah, it was pretty cool. All right, let's get some skin folds on his bicep because, let's face it, I'm not going to have pretty skin on areas that gravity affect. So we're going to go ahead and just grab this section here, isolate this, and we're just going to build up some kind of fatty tissue here, some skin folds. Cool, nice one, thanks. No problem, no problem. That's gonna change my entire workflow. Oh, seriously, yeah. If I'm gonna be 100% transparent with you guys, thick skin, I used it right in the beginning, and then I didn't use it for a while because I just fell to bad, like to old habits and stuff I used to do. And then like a couple months ago, I remembered it was a thing, so I started using it more. And now I'm like really happy that I'm using it. It's really great for hard surface, guys. Really great for hard surface. Hands down. Go. Let's kind of get some wrinkles up in there. There we go. I'll make his skin just a little saggy. He's a older, thicker Cthulhu. Yeah, it's funny. I didn't even realize you were in core right now. Yeah, core is cool. Well, I promised last week I would do core, so... And if it's something that you guys are still really super interested in seeing more of, I will just stick in core for a while to help you guys out. Because it's cool, too, because I actually like how much core kind of challenges me a little bit. And it lets me kind of... what's the word I'm looking for? Like, it doesn't, I can't rest on my laurels. I have to really, like, approach things, because I can't just pull in a brush and do it, Like, that's the problem with not the problem, but one of the limiter factors of ZBrush Core is that you can't bring in a custom brush, so you just got this, Here's some thick skin, by the way. And that's actually, let's see. Let's lower the intensity. Maybe it'll give me a little bit of like blobby wrinkle bits. There we go, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, PureUp is a reference program? Yes, it is, absolutely. Yep. Highly recommended. I haven't worked one job without it. There we go, yeah. I'm gonna use some of this thick skin. Just kind of give the skin a little bit of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, almost like cellulite a little bit. You know, because when you get older, your skin does not look as tight as it once was. Things start moving and you start wondering what's going on. So this thick skin kind of helps with that a little bit. There we go. There we go. You feel attacked. Sorry, brother. Just saying it as I learned it. I'm on the month trial for the full ZBrush, and I'm scared that I'll use a feature and build a habit using and lose it when I inevitably have to downgrade. Ah. Yeah, I totally get that. My biggest tip is maybe just focus on using some of the standard brushes, the clay buildup, the standard, the damn standard, because if you end up going from full ZBrush to core, yeah, there's a good chunk that is a little bit different, but it's almost like, I would say it's not as limiting as one might think in the beginning. When I first got ZBrush Core, I couldn't even ZRemesh. It was Dynamesh only. Now you're able to ZRemesh and get subdivisions, which is great. So, you have a good amount of stuff. I've never used this noise brush before. Oh, that's nice. Ooh. Ooh, that's like almost like a corrosion. Ooh, that's kind of cool. Let's use this. Kind of porous him up a little bit. Ooh, that's kind of neat. Actually gonna lower the intensity a little bit. Actually a lot. It's kind of maybe... Ooh, yeah, that's reading really cool. At first, I was like, ooh, that's powerful, but... That's reading pretty interesting. I like that. Yeah, let's go ahead and save, because I feel like I'm gonna break it. I'm old. You're not old. I'm gonna be 38 next week, guys, so don't worry. Yeah, happy accidents, yeah. Brush given tripod vibes. Oh, that's awesome. There we go. The fun part about texturing for 3D printing, in my opinion, is just getting something that looks really cool from afar, If I can see the texture back here and it's not destroying the character's look and feel, ooh, I get really excited about that, because that generally means that your details will start popping up. And you guys see, I kind of bounce all over the place. I'm like here, there. Okay, so you see what happened here was like, I have all this texture that's coming through. So I painted here and now it's popping in this way. So that's where backface comes in. So if you go to brush, auto mask, hit backface. Now when I put that detail there, it's not going to shine through. So that just meant that that area was too thin for the detail. It was too thin for the detail not to pop through. So it's too thin. It was showing the opposite side. You just kind of want to be aware of that sometimes, especially when you're detailing like fingers and stuff. And I still need to fix his hand, but I like where that's going so far. So we'll back it up, clean up the hand the rest of the way. And let's continue that thick skin. Sometimes I'm a bit OCD with my stuff. To be that young again. Yeah, I've been using ZBrush for a long time, and to be honest with you, I used about 6 of the brushes. That's all you really need. That is 100% fact. Yeah, you really only need a couple brushes. And I've said it before, each artist has their own set of brushes. Most artists, I think, would say that the common ones are like clay buildup, clay tubes, you know, damn standard. But every artist has about 5 of their own special default brushes that they rely on, that they build the majority of the sculpt. And then everything else, like when I've purchased brushes or developed brushes, it really is all for some sort of like texturing or detailing. It's not necessarily about getting a simple task done. I mean, how do I rephrase that? It is that because detailing is a task. Like, I don't buy a brush that's going to help me sculpt my base and get it set up. Generally, I'll buy just the detail brush. I just kind of lost myself there for a second. Don't mind me. I ramble a lot. Hopefully you understand where I stood. But yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and select this guy right here. Let's fix this hand. Okay. Control, Shift, drag to isolate. He had bad acne in his youth. How did you get it to look darker in the places where you use alpha textures? Great question. So in ZBrush Core, it's new to ZBrush Core, and it's pretty new still to ZBrush as a whole. It is called the Preview AO. So if you go to Render, Preview AO, if you turn this off, you can see it looks pretty flat, right? So Render, Preview AO, turn on Occlusion, and you can adjust the intensity. I have it pretty high. I had it about 30, 35. You can also adjust the quality of it. So you can go really light or really dark. You can also the max radius, so deeper or softer. It all depends on what you want. Secondary radius and also blur too. If you want to give it more of like an AO look, I'd say increase the secondary radius and then like add like a Gaussian blur almost to it. And that will give you more of like an AO feel, more of that natural feel. And then just increase the intensity a bit more. So like that. So that's with it on, that's off, on. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. How far into sculpt do you break symmetry? So it depends on the project. For me, if I'm sculpting a static statue, much like this, I break symmetry pretty quickly because I like to sculpt in pose. I think it's the best way to capture a pose. It's also just good practice, but you know, it's also to each their own. I've known a lot of artists who just choose to take it all the way to final before breaking symmetry. But for me personally, it's project dependent. Right now for work, I'm working on a project that's gonna basically take the details all the way to symmetry because the project will be animated. So I have to keep in mind the retopo phase and stuff for that project. So yeah, it's just dependent. Whatever works for you too, and whatever the project's requiring. Am I gonna rig this as well? I won't be rigging this project, no. This project is literally just gonna be 3D printed. Okay, let's actually get I'll start getting in a little bit more texture. So I'm going to pick Alpha 28. I'm going to start adding in some rougher textures here. Let's go solo for a second. Now, I don't usually rig when I pose. I usually pose a little bit more traditional to ZBrush by using the transpose or the mask and position method. I notice I have thick skin on still. The reason why I have thick skin on still is I don't want to actually go too far on the clay buildup. So it will cap me at some point, and that's on purpose. Go. Also just trying to keep in mind where these wings should be attaching, which I believe the wings should be attaching more to the trapezius muscles in the back. Smooth that down a little bit. There we go. Something more like such. Silly question? No such thing. Did he froze it for me? Hopefully I didn't freeze. Is it just me? Let me see. Says I'm still okay. Hi, what tablet am I using? I'm using the XP Pen Artist 13.3. What's the best way to approach merging the torso with other parts like arms and legs? I personally use Dynamesh method still. But you could also, let's see, I don't know if you can use it in ZBrush Core. Yeah. Yeah, they have remesh by union, which would work out fairly well. But honestly, I Dynamesh things and then put it back. So I like to Dynamesh, blend it together, smooth it, and then ZRemesh it to get subdivisions. How's the stream going for you guys? It seems I got a little bit of a drop, but it looks like it's regulating now. Hopefully the stream's still going. Let me guys know. Seems fine. Okay, great. Perfect. I've had weird things happen in my area where my internet gets worked on at random times, so hopeful that it's not too bad. There was about a blip about 15 minutes ago. Seems good now. Perfect. Awesome. Okay. Yay! Awesome. Okay, great. Because we're going to go till about 8 p.m. my time. So another 2 hours. Hoping to get a good chunk of stuff done tonight. So I'm going to kind of cut in where some folds would be happening here. I think I'm hungry. Nice. Okay, good. Good. Well, if you're hungry, go eat. Gotta get that food. Ended up getting a burrito before I started streaming. Okay, I'm actually going to turn off thickness here just for a second because I'm going to inflate this area. First, start with the standard brush. I'm going for a little bit more sag here. Not sure how else to say that. When I first started this project, I thought, how gross can I go with it? So I'm hopeful that we can get pretty disgusting. Without relying on death and decay, you know? Oh yeah. Alright, let's take the inflate brush and let's actually kind of get things a little bit A little bit more. Okay, believe it or not, back folds are a thing. I'm gonna put the thick skin back on, and we're gonna put some on here. What I actually want to do is isolate this good section right here to then get some of that happening. So we have a little bit of fat coming up from his belly area, and we're gonna want that fat to kind of fall in line a little bit. So we're gonna need to kind of push this in here. All this detail is definitely like a lot of fun to add. Let's back that up a bit. How often do you have symmetry on? Once I break symmetry, like never. No eat, only art. Yeah, the more I sculpt, the more I've been going asymmetrical with my stuff. One of my biggest influencers of sculpting has been Steve Lord. Sure you guys have heard of him. He does a lot of asymmetrical sculpting. Sculpting in pose. I don't know, for some reason I think it just captures a little bit more uniquely. But it's project dependent on how long I stay in symmetry. So here we're going to kind of build up a little bit more of this thickness on his back. And I'm trying not to go too much. Because the other thing too, so with keeping 3D printing in mind, one of the aspects of adding thicker details is how something will print without supports. So generally speaking, if you have a staircase, right? Something like this. Ideally, this will print 100% without supports. There's no need for it. And that's based off of like basically a 45-degree angle, where most things will print support free. So when I add details like this and I'm looking at this type of curve, I'm not going to need a lot of supports back here. So if I can kind of keep that same silhouette, but keep the details strong by cutting in some areas and exaggerating elsewhere, then yeah, you can actually set yourself up for success on the print process too. I've been using Nomad Sculpt on my iPad Pro during the commute to and from work to sculpt my base meshes. Let you export straight into ZBrush ready models. So that's awesome. I hardly ever I have Nomad, but I like rarely use it. So that's great to know. Skin texture is amazing. Is that a brush? Actually, it's standard brush. So the skin texture I got here to get all of this was I went to the standard brush, so BST. And this is ZBrush Core, so you can't add brushes whatsoever. But then with the Alpha, I went to Alpha 7. And then what I do is I generally get myself a decent sized brush, let's say 20. I'll Alt. Oh, I'll also go to Stroke. Sorry, missed a step. Stroke and Spray. And I'll actually do something like this. And then I'll end up smoothing that down. Go a little bit smaller. Also, too, it helps to drop the intensity. And just kind of come over it. Cut positively, cut negatively, light smooth. Blend it together. And you get like a decent noise texture that you can utilize for skin. Yes, I'm the person that sculpted the Darth Grogu. Absolutely. I'm glad so many of you like that one. That's one of my favorite sculpts. It was such an honor to work on him, too. And then all these little, like, disgusting bits you're seeing here, that's just the noise brush. That's just stock with ZBrush Core. That was just me, like, kind of coming in here and then adding a little bit of grittiness to it. I'm gonna have to do something with this back here. I'm almost not even liking this anymore, so... That happens, guys. Trust me, that happens. In fact, I want to see what it looks like if I cut it out. I don't know, let's play with it first. Let's see if we could do something with it. I don't like just cutting things out without trying everything first. Yeah, I didn't know about that. The stream just gets better and better. I'm glad. Yeah. Just little simple tricks. And that's what I mean too. Like, yeah, just get in there, play with some stuff. Honestly, like, if you take the stroke and the alpha brushes and then just play, you can get some really cool results really quickly. You know what? Okay. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to make these spikes. I don't like this design here. This looks... I'm being overly critical of my own stuff. I don't like it. So we're going to get rid of it. So I'm going to back this up. I'm going to make them more like spikes coming out. So I'm just going to lob off the top here. Yep, say that's great. Geometry, I'm actually going to go ahead and I have to delete lower, I think, because I can't do delete hidden without it. So I'm going to go ahead and delete lower. Go ahead and delete hidden. And then I'm going to close holes. And we're going to make this something a little bit different. So also, let's turn off thick skin. Okay, it is off. Great. Let's grab this section. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that section right there. Do the same thing. Delete hidden, close holes. Here we go. We're going to turn these into something else because I just didn't like it. That's okay. Is this back part of the arm a separate piece that you merged or just built from the arm? It's actually, it was a separate piece that I just used Dynamesh and then used, I just used the snake hook, got them together, Dynameshed, brought it together, Dynameshed, and then merged it together. And now after looking at it, I just didn't like it. Okay, so we are working at pretty high active points here. So, and because I had to delete lower to change this, I'm actually going to get a new brush here. So if you open up the spotlight and go to brush, you're granted some extra brushes you didn't know existed. And one of my favorites is the Smooth Stronger. Hold shift and double tap it. So Smooth Stronger is a stronger version of the smooth brush. So when you have such high subdivision levels or such thicker mesh, it actually smooths a lot easier for you. So the Smooth Stronger brush is more for like when you're working in high subdivisions and you need to like kind of get things smooth, but the normal smooth brush, even at 100%, isn't doing what you want it to. That's one way to go about it. And now we're just going to use the snake hook brush. And I'm going to kind of spike these out a little bit. I'm going to just go ahead and lob off this section here. Delete hidden, close holes. There we go. There we go. Start really working this. I'm going to use this dam standard now, and I'm actually going to end up making a shape that would indicate that this is actually like maybe part of his bone or something. So let's actually cut around this area. Get that dug in there. So Something like that. And we'll finesse this as we go a little bit more. Great work. How can I get a hold of you for work in the near future? If you'd like to get a hold of me, I actually have a ton of... You can message me here. That's all my links. Takes you to my portfolio, takes you to a bunch of places. So yeah, you can always reach out in any one of those ways via DM or email or something. If you go to my art station, I actually have my email contact, resume, and such on there. Thank you, by the way. I appreciate it. Rebuilds of these would work. Yes. Yes, it would. Except for, if we go to geometry, delete lower, delete higher, high res, low, divide, subdivide. No rebuild. We be limited. No, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Let's go ahead and take this. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take that thick skin. We're going to turn that back on. And we're going to build up this area right around this, like, spiky stuff on them. Let's see. Ooh, that's too much. I know, right? Yeah. Sometimes you got to do things the hard way. There we go. Let's just take, how high is that? Okay, that's fine. So let's come on up here like this. So the other thing with the thick skin too is you can kind of merge some of these. So you see how the clay buildup is kind of meeting with itself. So you're able to kind of also blend it in. Thick skin kind of acts like a little bit of a morph target too. So you get some good stuff happening there. We'll do the same on this side. Get that over there. Well, this is ZBrush Core, so you're definitely purposely limited. So being able to, like, I would have this done really, I would have this done faster in normal ZBrush for sure. But in Core, a little bit more of a challenge, but not impossible. There we go. There we go. See, now that's looking a little bit better. I'm liking that a bit more. We can make that look more like bone in a little bit. Get that down just a little bit. There we go. I have to go. Ian, thanks so much for all the great tips. It was nice hanging out with you and checking out your work. It was great hanging out with you as well. Thank you so much for the solid questions. Enjoy your evening or morning, depending on where you are. But thank you so much for stopping by. Does thick skin add to the original mesh, or does it create a new layer on top? Yeah, so it's basically adding a new layer on top until you turn it off. Now it's like real mesh. So if I go back for a second, it's still technically real mesh that you're working with. It's just a little bit more editable. So for example, with the thick skin turned on, if I go to 0, I can paint that away, right? So it is basing, it's like a projection of the underlying mesh and allowing you to add more. It becomes real geometry when you turn it off, because then I can't wipe it away, right? And if I turn it back on and turn it down to 0, I can't wipe it away, because each time I turn on thick skin, it actually remembers what the current state of the mesh was before it was turned on, which is kind of where that morph target feel comes in. However, the plus side is that it's also history based. So I can't wipe it away anymore, right? Because I went too far forward. But if I control Z, and if you watch this thick skin, if I control Z enough, it turns itself off and back on. Now I can go back and edit it. So yeah, it's like building a new layer that gets set the moment you turn it off. And it has a history store property, so it's a really great way of non-destructive work. Back that up a second. Also, guys, this is my favorite song on this playlist. just saying. So it's just such a great one. If you didn't know, now you do. Okay. Kind of fix that arm there a little bit. The tricep was looking a little funky. Is it good for building mass quickly? Yeah, I would say so. I would say maybe more towards building quick mass with a limiter to it. So I said earlier it was great for hard surface. Let me show you why. So I'm going to go ahead and take the cylinder, for example, and I'm going to go ahead and make Polymesh 3D, subdivide it a few times, and we're just going to delete lower and just work with what we got here. So let's say I want to get like kind of I want to get like a really nice circle brought up in here, and I want to use the standard brush to do this. So let's go ahead and put this back to dots, turn alpha off. So if I turn thick skin on, and let's say I want to build some sort of hard surface concept real quick, what I could do is I can set it. Let's turn off lazy mouse for a second. And I can quickly bring up some. I got too thick right here. I could quickly bring up some shapes. I can also maybe drag a straight line. Let me see here. Come on. Oh, I have to turn on lazy mouse. All right, so let's say I want to do a straight line. And then I hit 1 a bunch of times. I can actually repeat my stroke and get a really nice, solid, clean curve going on here. I can even use the move brush, hold Alt, and kind of pull out or push in some pretty decent spherical shapes. Same with a damn standard. I can go ahead and draw, you know, like a straight line, come across, hit 1, and get some pretty neat cut-ins. And like I said, it kind of acts like a morph target a little bit, so you can get some pretty interesting stuff quickly, but it's more about limiting how far you go into the mesh or build on top of it. So yeah, it's a great way to play around, but I appreciate it more for its limiter aspect. More so than anything else. But yeah, like a round horn, exactly. You know, so if I wanted to get a horn on this guy, let's pull the thickness up. I'm going to go ahead and, you know, I can pull something pretty quickly, and it's just going to stay within that area. So let's say I wanted a broken horn. There you go. There's the base for my broken horn. And also the move brush, if I use the Alt function, which will pull along a normal, I can actually control where that lies. And it'll kind of scout that out. So yeah. Yeah, it's like you could do a lot of stuff with it. Yeah. Actually, Darth Grogu's lightsaber I completely built out of using thick skin and just a rectangle shape. And then I just drew all the details with thick skin, and I tapped 1 like a madman, which is a repeat stroke. So, like I was saying earlier, if I wanted to create like a line down his head, like this, I push 1 a bunch of times. You know, that's only going to go in so far, but hitting 1 is going to repeat that stroke, so I get a nice clean line each time it remembers that process. Same this way. Eventually it will cap out where that's at, so. Just be careful how many times you hit 1. That's a lot of history. You'll see here I'm actually utilizing thick skin a lot for the more of the fatty tissues and getting that kind of wrinkly look a bit. So that's cool. I find working within limits is where I get stuck often and have to give me some fix. Yep, I feel you, man. All right. Also got to get some folds on his elbows. So let's actually grab the drag rec. Actually, no, not the drag rec. Let's do the spray with the Alpha 60. Oh no, don't do that. I'm actually going to kind of go across this area. So what I use the Alpha 60 for is to kind of isolate an area, invert that a little bit. And then what I do is I actually drag across. And this will give me some good possible areas for some wrinkles. Where it would be on the elbow. So I'm going to come across. Bigger brush. Maybe too big. Maybe that's too big. Something like that. Soften that up. Then I'm going to take the standard brush. And then I'm just going to come in. Try off thick skin for a second. There we go. I'm going to emphasize some of this with the standard brush and just paint in between these lines. It's a good way to emphasize imperfections in the skin. I can take the damn standard and actually come through and cut a little bit more of these up. There we go. It's a good way to add some of your own custom skin details. Let's do the same thing here. Let's emphasize some of these here. Yeah, super quick result for realistic. Yep, absolutely. It's all about just layering it, you know, and using some of the tools given to you. The BST, go back for... And notice too, I do it a lot where I'll pull out really far and kind of see how it's looking as a whole and then zoom all the way back in. Because 9 times out of 10, if you're in this position for too long, in my opinion, you start like, you know, you could overwork your model pretty quickly. So it's helpful to zoom out. Also compare too, like this is really gnarly over here. This isn't so bad. So, you know, let's make this side a little bit more symmetrical. And that's the trick to asymmetrical sculpting, is that, you know, you constantly want to reference the other side. But that asymmetry is going to kind of give you its own little story and its own little feel. So you can get some pretty fun results. There we go. There we go. So yeah, that's looking a lot gnarlier then. So just come in here now. Back to the standard brush and just kind of fill in around this area. And if you're working in full ZBrush, you can use this technique to build yourself some VDM brushes. And get your own custom VDM brushes, which a lot of us will use for detailing. kind of come up a little bit. There we go. There, see, that's looking a little bit better. Let's actually go here. So there won't be so many wrinkles on top here as there would be underneath, so let's not go too nuts. Grab the select lasso for next time. There we go. Hello! Hello, Next Nox. How you doing, buddy? Alright. Let's take the clay buildup. Now what I'm going to do is actually start working around his nails a little bit. Let's actually grab this right here. So when you're working with a lot of models, but you want to close stuff out quickly, or a lot of subtools, if you hold shift and tap on the eye, you'll actually hide everything or bring up everything. So that way you could quickly deselect a bunch of stuff in your way when solo isn't working for you, because you want to see a different subtool, but you don't want to merge. Then you can just isolate that spot. And you can start. You just quickly grab a bunch of stuff. You doing good? Nice, man, nice. All right. Actually gonna go ahead and drop the intensity a little bit. We're gonna say about 8. Quickly just giving him a little bit of like a finger bed over that nail. And then we'll end up cleaning it up. Getting the feet to align with the base. Is this just done visually, i.e. moving the feet where it looks right? A good trick that I learned when getting the feet aligned to the base right is the bottom. Well, if you look at your viewport, you have this white box. So what I do is I turn off perspective, because perspective will give you, will throw you off a little bit and give you kind of that fisheye look. Keep perspective off for this, and then try to line up your model to that white line if you're trying to go for something that's perfectly flat. But if you are using, something like this where it's a little bit more, oval or round, having the preview AO turned on will actually allow you to kind of see the shadow work a little bit that happens underneath. And then how it interacts will actually cast a fake AO. And then you can tell that your model's sitting on top of something on the base or a surface of sorts. But it is a little bit visual too, you kind of can just see how that's going. Yeah, no problem, Jimmy. No problem at all. Awesome. Okay, so you can see here I have a little bit of crookedness with my fingernail, right? So let's go ahead and highlight that guy right there, and let's fix that, because we don't want a broken fingernail anatomically. What's up, Carver? Yeah, that booty though, right? Yep. You guys know what I sculpt. Okay, let's start fixing the hands a little bit. Now, here's the other thing, too, I will say. So, working asymmetrically, sometimes can present some problems. But because, of of kind of how the model is and what I'm doing with it. If I wanted to sculpt one really good hand, you can mirror it over. So don't ever be afraid to mirror and weld or dynamesh it. So you don't have to always do, you know, double the work. I'll show you what I mean, because I'm going to make this hand look really nice. And then I'm going to mirror this over, so let's do it. So let's get that in there. Let's start fixing this hand, because, guys, I've broken it. Let's first get the... get the joints positions correct. Pardon me. All right. We're going to add in a little bit of that cut line. Okay, good. Make sure thick skin's not turned on here. So we're adding in some of the fold positions with these fingers. You can see I'm just kind of loosely plopping them in too. I'm getting the main line first, and then we'll focus on the rest. And I'm just lining that up with the knuckle where that should be. So, a little bit of a rough anatomy here, so let's fix that. If you have something like a subtool nail in mind, you know, we want to just move this one. Let's mask this nail off, invert that. Switch back to the hand. Go ahead and turn on that pizza pie. Now when we move that nail, I mean the finger, that nail's going to come with it. So, and because we mask that off, should be fine. There we go. Are there any hair tubes that could be sorry, condenser. Wow, I can't read today. Condendered. Pre-topologized. I only ask because I've had trouble with complicated hairstyles. I don't think so off the top of my head. Considered, I think is what you meant. Could be considered pre-topologized. In ZBrush Core, no. But in ZBrush, they have a new alpha curve brush that you could use that has pretty good topology in it. If you have full ZBrush, look that up. It's a really good, it's a good method now. It kind of replaces a lot of hair brushes, like the Macon hairbrush and stuff, because you can create your own alpha, then you can use that alpha as a curve brush that could be used for hair. So, yeah. I don't want to break your flow, but how do you go about sculpting cloth forms? Is there a better way than starting with a rectangle and smashing it into place? No rush on response. Thanks again. I believe it's, you know what? Let me load up ZBrush real quick. I'm going to get you the right answer. And no, Jimmy, don't even worry. Let's do this. I'm going to minimize core. Let's pop open real ZBrush for a second, because I want to get you the right information. Bloop. Load. There we go. All right, great. So let's go ahead and get the sphere. Drag that open. T for edit. Make polymesh 3D. Okay, B. Okay, so in ZBrush 2021.6.4, we have a few different brushes. You have Alpha Curve, which what Alpha Curve does is allows you, let's go big, to take an alpha. So like, let's say the star one, right? And then it gives you this curve brush. And if we look at the topology, it's actually pretty good. And you can actually use multiple alphas, different alphas for different shapes out the gate. And it's already fairly what's the word I'm looking for? It's already tapering, so it gives you that kind of hair feel. You also have the alpha multi-curve, which means you can draw multiple curves and kind of stack that hair and manipulate each one as needed to get some pretty decent hair. And you also have now curve flat snap and curve flat. And what this does is these are kind of like quoted as being used for like hair cards almost. If you wanted to do some sort of hair card. I don't have a whole lot of experience with hair cards, but here's are some brushes that I would actually recommend you use for this. And of course, when you're using a curved brush, if you draw one out and you want to continue that stroke, hover over until you get that red line and continue drawing, and you can get that going. So that's what I would say. So these ones are called the curve flat snap, and then of course the curve alpha brushes. Okay. Now for cloth, if you want to, what about sculpting cloth forms? Is there a better way, starting with a rectangle and smashing it? There is a better way. In full ZBrush is where we'll start with this one. And let's just bring up a base mesh that we can use. Now we're not going to save changes. Okay. So I'll show you how I tend to make a shirt, and then how I would say maybe make a cape. Making a shirt, I actually heavily rely on using extract method and the mask lasso. So let's make a shirt real quick. Something like that. Actually, that should be fine right there. Let's go ahead and do something like that. Okay, great. So I'm actually going to sharpen that mask up. So let's say we have just like your kind of casual shirt here. Nothing too crazy. I say that all the time, but there we go. Okay. Don't mind me. There we go. Okay. So to make a shirt and get some decent cloth forms happening, mask this up completely, and then what I recommend that you do is you go to Subtool, Extract, and then you have an option here called Thick. Turn that to 0, 100%. So that's at 0, then hit Extract, then hit Accept. What this will do, if I take off the hit solo for a second, this will give you a single-sided surface. So you can see there's no inside. If I hit double, I now have a single-sided surface. What I can then do from here is actually go to deformation and just polish, polish by features, kind of clean that up a little bit. When you use the extract method, the edges are creased. That is actually what you want for the next step, because then we can just go to geometry. We can go to Z remesher, keep creases, say target of 2 polys. Go ahead and Z remesh that, and that'll get you a pretty quick base to get some clothing in. You can do this for pants, shirts, bracelets. For capes, I would probably recommend maybe using like, a plain 3D, but you can also use it for a cape as well if you just kind of mash masked out one side and then extruded it. But now you can get some pretty clean edge flow just by polishing by features. So extract, polish by features, keep creases, ZBrush, and now we have a shirt. And then from there, you can utilize, dynamic thickness, maybe add some thickness. Now you have your shirt here. Now, if you want to get some wrinkles and forms going, what I recommend you can do then is go to dynamics. Dynamics is a lot of fun because then what you could do is turn off inflate. Maybe from there, say gravity of like 2. Kind of allow to shrink a little bit if you want. Self collision. Turn that up. Recalculate it. Then you can have it kind of fall on the surface a little bit. That's a bit heavy. Let's grab 0.5. Calculate that again. Or, if you don't want to mess with dynamics, open up your brush, transpose cloth. Turn off symmetry for a second. You can actually move this geometry now around and kind of give you some wrinkles and shapes to maybe follow, play around with it a little bit, but I would say, yeah. When you just set that to 2 poly, what does 2 mean? So 2 means 2,000, essentially. 2,000 polys is what it's averaging out, give or take. Yeah. And then you're good to go. And then from here, you can go ahead and either... I recommend when you're dealing with clothing, don't apply thickness until you're done sculpting. Because with the single-sided... Let's just turn off thickness for a second. I have a shortcut for that. You can apply all your wrinkles and stuff fairly easily. No problem. To your shirt. You can come in and you could just start adding some of that in there. And when you add your thickness, it will then kind of remember those shapes. Oh, don't worry. They record the VOD, so let's see, it's almost 2 hours in. Just mark that time on the VOD. YouTube will keep all that, and you can redo it. For capes are a little bit more unique. So what I would say for a cape is actually, you could do one of 2 things. You can either do the same extract method where you kind of paint, maybe get the mask pen, kind of paint yourself a shape. Something like this. Nothing too pretty. Just something that gives you a starting point. Hit extract and just say, yeah, 0 thickness, hit accept. And now you have this. And then what you can do, that you already get that kind of flow happening. So then, go back to deformation. If we go ahead and look at it and we say polish by features, that cleans up that edge but still keeps it nice and sharp because it has the crease all over it. Then go to geometry, ZRemesher, keep creases. Again, poly target count. If we say 2, that's like 2,000. Maybe try 1. ZRemesh it. That's actually not enough. So we can actually go lower. We can go 0.2. So that's like 200. Loop. So let's say we have just something like that. And again, this is all just kind of playing around a little bit. So now we have this. Let's turn this off for a second. And then what I would actually recommend for capes is maybe just go ahead and just mask off an area. Go back into dynamics for a second. So let's back this up here. Let's say something like that. Let's mask off this section. Maybe soften it a bit. There's a feature in dynamics up at the top that says on masked. And what on masked means is that anything that's masked is actually going to be affected, and anything that's not masked will stay where it's at. So then you can go ahead and say on masked. and then recalculate. Anytime you're working with dynamics, always recalculate when you make an adjustment in the settings, or you make an adjustment with what's visible in your viewport, because from there, you're actually not going to be able, it won't calculate everything. It'll remember the previous settings. So if I hide this guy, for example, and don't hit recalculate, it's going to remember that he was there. So I'd have to hit recalculate. So let's go ahead and hit recalculate. Great. And then if we just say gravity of like 1, go ahead and say, yeah, that's good. Now run simulation. It's going to kind of stretch that a little bit. So we could stretch that out. Or you could just take the move brush, right? Kind of drag this out a little bit. Again, now you got your starting point. Maybe relax smooth by holding shift, smooth, and then let go of shift. That will relax smooth. Because we're working on a single-sided geometry, it's not super important. Maybe now we'll Z-remesh it at the same, because we want to keep that poly count low, especially when you're working with dynamics. But now let's say we want to wrap this cape around him, right? So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to put the cape here. I'm going to turn the floor off for a second, and I'm going to face him down. And then I'm going to go to set direction. What that's going to do is set the gravity's direction in that position. So if I turn around and actually face him up, and then hit run simulation, of course I need the mask turned on, hit run simulation, it's now going to go in that area. Or what you could do is go back to that cloth brush like we had talked about, and get it close in position to him as much as possible. Let's turn self-collision on a little bit. For collision off, we don't need that. Also, too, we can turn on inflate or expand or contract. So just play around with these settings. Turn on collision volume, recalculate scene, and then run simulation. Now we have the cape flowing through him, right? Turn on double for a second so we can see that this cape is going through. Turn on dynamic, add some thickness. And now we get the cape kind of wrapping around him. So, all bunch of fun ways you can do it. Hopefully that's helpful. Hopefully I didn't go too fast. I need some water, hold on. Yeah. So, yeah, lots of fun stuff. And let's say we want the cape going the other way. Sorry, my brain's going 100 miles an hour now. Let's say we want the cape kind of flowing back. Same thing, let's go back this way. Set direction. Let's mask off this bottom half. Maybe soften it a little bit. Turn that on masked. Recalculate scene. Now run that simulation. It's a little too fast, right? So let's back it up. 0.25. Recalculate. There we go. Now we can kind of get that cape kind of going backwards a little bit. You could do all sorts of fun stuff with that. And if you turn on that, again, if you turn on that cloth brush, you can use that as well. Makes blocking almost instant. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, just a bunch of fun things you can do with it. For the shirt, if you want like a really tight shirt, for example, the other thing you can do is actually turn on, I believe it's not, where is it? Allow shrink. There it is. Calculate that, run that simulation. And sometimes you can get it to shrink around the body a bit. So, all fun stuff. Yeah, it can be. It just depends on what you're going for. Again, it's just another way to do it. So, if you need something very, very specific, if you want a cloth that's looking like, the face is coming through it, like if you want that kind of screaming look, it's one way to do it. So, yeah, again, it just all depends on how you want to proceed. The one thing to keep in mind when you're working with dynamics is that it is based on all the vertices, so the fewer vertices you have, the least amount of detail it's going to capture, where the more vertices you have, more detail it will capture. The problem with that, though, is that if you have too high of, too high of subdivision, then you could cause your computer to slow down a lot. And I definitely talk more in depth about it in one of my YouTube videos. If you would like to go check out my YouTube channel, I have a bunch of videos on that stuff as well that goes pretty in depth. So, but for just blocking something out and getting something quickly, I use this all the time. Okay, let's go back to ZBrush Core, and we'll work on the hand a bit more. Does anybody have any questions on that? Because I definitely don't mind taking questions on that. If you don't mind a repeating pattern like a braid, Greek key, or even small chain, how would you approach? Actually, I'm going to defer you to a video that I've learned how to do braids. Braids are kind of complicated, but I'm going to show you an Ask ZBrush. Check this out. You're going to like this one. And I'll link you to it because it is a really great way to get like a hair braid or something pretty fast. And I personally love this method over the way I've attempted to try it. So check that one out for sure. What's up, MJ Sculpts? How you doing? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start getting some finger bones in here. There we go. Oop. Hey, not a problem. Not a problem at all. Thanks for so many questions. I love it. Hopefully you guys are finding them useful. One of the things I definitely like letting, one of the things I like mentioning a lot is ZBrush is a lot like Photoshop in this one aspect, is that there's a bunch of ways to do the same technique. So how I do something may not always be the best way of doing something, but it's just what I've done and learned, and vice versa. Sometimes the way other people do them may not be the best. It's all about finding what works for you and getting the results that you want. And at the end of the day, if I do one thing and you do something that's different and you're getting the same result, there's nothing wrong with that, So I tend to I really love looking at other people's workflows and suggestions and then just seeing how they fit in my everyday sculpting. It's a bunch of ways to skin a cat, they say. Is that the saying? Okay. Are you making Vegeta? I am not making Vegeta. I'm actually doing a Cthulhu. And we're in the posing and asymmetrical detailing phase. I have sculpted a Vegeta before. And he's available for download for people who support the Patreon I have. But yeah, I'm not sculpting him today. I want to probably do another Dragon Ball character when I get some free time. I've been wanting to sculpt like a Majin Buu. I think that would be crazy. Even better. Well, if you guys want to check out my stuff, my Patreon, all that stuff, I'm going to link to it right here. Feel free to jump in. If you want to check out my art station, you can see the Vegeta I'm talking about. Yeah. I was working on a articulated version of Vegeta, but then that project got put on hold because I've been working for a couple places and life just got busy. When life gets busy, you tend to put your personal projects aside and you figure out which ones you want to work on. Cthulhu! Yeah, yeah. I kind of went a different direction than what I normally see with him. I think it was like a year and a half ago, I did like a Cthulhu banana sculpt. And it like... so many people loved that one. And so I was like, you know, time to do another Cthulhu. Okay, you know what I'm going to do, actually? I think I'm going to... okay, hold on. Turn off that pizza box for 5 seconds. Let's grab that guy. He has like a short, stubby thumb, and I don't like it, so let's actually fix that. That sounds amazing. Yeah, you guys want to see a Cthulhu banana? He's one of my favorite little things that I found on the internet, and I was like, I have to sculpt this. Yeah, you want to see it? All right, let me see if I can pull it up here in a minute. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Yeah, it was so funny. It was like one of the first things that like really like broke my Instagram overnight. It was so weird. Yeah, let me see if I can find it real quick. Hold on. Here, let's see. So I ended up let's see. I think I textured it as well. Like it's one of those things, it's like a 2-hour sculpt. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Get on now. I'll go to my profile real quick. Scrub through some of my projects real fast. So this was the Vegeta I was talking about. I did a while ago. Here he is. Here he is. It's my Cthulhu banana sculpted in ZBrush. like, yeah, this was back in August of 2020, like a 2-hour sketch. And I found this guy. This was the concept. I liked it. And this is what I ended up with. Right? So yeah. Really just a fun little piece. Super crazy. And then this was the Vegeta I was talking about just a moment ago. Slight anti-gravity base. More him just like lunging forward. Yeah. So fun stuff. Ever been eating a banana? It's nice open. Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. I think right around that time, there was enough people just like super infatuated with Cthulhu for a moment. And then Cthulhu Banana became a thing. And I was like, all right, let's sculpt it. Let's see what we get here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and mask off this area right here. There we go. Kind of invert that. Alt touch, kind of bring that there like such. There we go. Let's grab that guy. Let's bring that there. Please do the entire Dragon Ball universe? Oh, I'm gonna have to, yeah. For skin texture, are you using custom or default? I am just using since I'm doing everything in ZBrush Core, I'm just using the standard brush with the alpha 7 and the spray brush, and then I'm combining that with the noise brush, and then I go back in with standard. I just go back in with the standard brush and kind of fill in some of the wrinkle areas. Let's see here. Any comments on the current state of like My Mini Factory or Kickstarter? No, not really. I got nothing there. Only been in the stream for 10 minutes or so. How long did it take you to get this far on this guy? So I haven't been clocking the hours, but I've been clocking the streams. So I did 3 personal streams at 3 hours, and then this is my second Pixo stream continuing him. So 3, 6, 9, 12. So going on 16 hours or so of work. And I really wanted to focus on getting him really textured today. And then, yeah, we're going to be 3D printing him. I don't like the base 100%, so we're going to work on that a little bit more too. But this is everything that we have right now. You can kind of see where we're at. So still some work to do on his feet. Honestly, guys, I'm probably going to work on him for another stream or 2 just to really get him going, because I really want to push it as far as I can, you know? And we're going to do everything in ZBrush Core, which I think is really going to be helpful. Let's see, this noise brush just really gives us some cool little texture that we could play with. You like his belly? Yeah, he's like, he's been around. And he likes to eat. He's a hungry dude. Right now I'm fixing his hand, because his hand is just... His hand is not pretty. So we gotta fix that a little bit. Okay. There we go. Okay, let's grab the move brush. There we go. I'm going to take the standard brush here. We'll turn off the spray and kind of build up a little bit of these skin folds in his fingers. So a good way to get some sort of, you know, because your skin, when you close your finger, kind of puffs up a little bit. So I like to mask off one area and then kind of add that, that puffiness with a little bit of just the standard brush. And the more you exaggerate this, the older the hands could look. And then invert that just a little bit. Kind of get that up. There we go. We'll do the same here. This is a good finger spot. And the other thing too is you could take the inflate brush and actually go over those areas as well to kind of close them and bring that out just a bit more. So a few different ways to approach it. There you go, kind of mask that area off. There we go. What time is it? Oh, it's 7:15 already. Man, that's quick. So we're going to 8 o'clock today. See how far we can get it. Let's invert that. Also soften that brush a little bit too, so they're not super exaggerative. There we go. Let's go back, and you can kind of see how that's working. We'll have to finesse it just a bit more. Let's take the clay build up here. Gonna have to challenge myself one day and not do smoothing so much. Tend to smooth a lot. You think it's gone? No, no worries. Like I said, you guys will see me bounce around a lot. And that's because it helps me see all the things I need to work on and keep everything relatively uniform. As much as it can be. Again, some things too, like, we're going to be 3D printing this somewhere between, 1/8 scale, give or take, right? So the real thing we want to remember here is what's going to be super visible and what's not going to be. And then we keep all that in mind. And the smaller we get to, like if this is going to be a miniature, then all the detail I have in his finger isn't going to matter. So we just want to make sure that we get the form and shape right over all else, and then worry about what kind of detail we put in. No, so maybe I'll make him a miniature. That'd be kind of fun. See, is that? I think I actually want to crank this down a little bit. I feel like I broke his thumb. So let's do that. Let's grab this. Real quick, let's actually mask this area off. Let's come back here. Yeah. There we go. Let's fix this pose a little bit. Woohoo! Okay. What I am going to do, actually, I'm working with a pretty dense file. Let's save this real quick. Kind of breaking that a little bit. I think I'm going to go Dynamesh. I'm going to go back to Dynamesh here because pretty much broke it. That's always fun. I don't know, stop. Go to blur. I want to do about 1,000 Dynamesh. There we go. There we go. All right. Go. It's better. Look at that. Not too bad. Let's actually inflate this wrinkle a bit. There we go. Dynamesh cleans up those artifacts. Yeah, sometimes they can. So yeah, I broke up some nasty artifacts. And in ZBrush Core, I could ZRemesh it, but then that's going to take away a lot of what I worked on. And I don't have a project. So it was at 3 million, so I just kicked it down to about 1 million Dynamesh. And kept a lot of those good details. Because we're 3D printing, I don't need to have a retopologized surface. But I still want a good amount of detail. So, merging things together. Plus, I was actually planning on doing that anyway, because I'm going to cut this hand off once we fix it. Delete this hand, and then place this hand over here by duplicating. So, just another way to do it. I have something about 3.8 million. What is the best way to lower the count, not freeze my system, but retain the most detail? I would say the best way to do it, if you're working in full ZBrush, is to duplicate your model by hitting Control-Shift-D. Then go ahead and ZRemesh that at a suitable level. And then go ahead and subdivide up. And then go to Project and project the details from the Dynamesh onto that model. Hello, Export OBJ. How you doing? Sir, can you tell me what work Geometry HD? Geometry HD. Geometry HD. Let me go into full ZBrush for a second. Sorry, I kind of need to see that. Bloop. Oops, wrong one. That's core. Sorry, give me a second. Off the top of my head, I'm like drawing a blank all of a sudden. Give me 1 second. HD geometry. It activates HD geometry rendering. So HD geometry, yeah, it's for your rendering. If you want a really high-end render within ZBrush, that's what you would activate to turn that on. And if you ever have a question about a button or a feature, if you hover over it and then hold Control, it actually ends up telling you what that is. So if you go back to Preferences, you go to Render, HD Geometry, you turn that bad boy on. It just says the HD Geometry button will render all subtools that have HD when at once when using BPR. So it's a render property to get a cleaner, higher end render. If you want to know more about that, I would either check with Ask ZBrush or email Pixologic. Ask ZBrush, I think, has something on that. I rarely use that feature at this current time. You could decimate. If you want to, you could decimate for sure. It depends on what your end goal is. If you want to retain the most detail, subdividing from a Dynamesh to subdivision will give you the most detail. Decimating will retain the detail as best as possible. And you could take it pretty low. But again, it depends on what you're trying to do at the end. If you want a 3D print, decimate for sure. Back in time, yeah. Okay. Legacy tool from BQ. From BQ? Back in the time. Oh. Alright, just want to make sure I understood that. Okay. Let's get more of this hand worked on. So we're going to get kind of the fat pads in the hand on here. And I'm actually going to use my hand for reference. Yeah. Hopefully that made sense, guys. That's great, man. Gotta run. Thanks. Not a problem, Jimmy. Thank you guys for such the amazing questions. I love answering these questions as best I can. ATLE. Hello, hello. All right. All right, so we're going to go ahead and try to get this little bit of there's always this little bit of webbing between your thumb and your palm. That's always such a fun little piece to get. Hi, how are you doing? Okay. All right. All right, guys, so we got about another half hour before the stream is up today. Just quickly want to say thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. It's just amazing time to come in and just sculpt. You're doing good? Awesome. Yeah. There we go. Like I said earlier today, if you guys are really interested in me staying in ZBrush Core for a little bit, let me know, because I'm actually enjoying it a lot more than I thought I would. It's a lot of fun. Kind of reconnects me with some of the basic brushes, you know? Bag, thank you. Do you want to know how to sculpt a bag? I can sculpt a bag. No, thank you for streaming. Oh, dude. I love it, man. I love it. Okay. So there's this kind of softer spot right here. We got to get this in here. So in your wrist, what makes it be able to move this way is there's actually a gap in your wrist that allows your wrist to kind of move that way. And as you get older, that becomes a little bit more visible. And you can kind of see that right in that spot. So we want to try to exaggerate that part by building up that wrist bone and then almost creating like a little divot right here. There we go, smoothing again. There we go. It's a bad autocorrect, yeah. Have Cthulhu holding a handbag. Oh, that's funny. Oh, I like that idea. That's really cool. Abs moment. Absolutely, it's an abs moment. If you guys are wondering, when I type "and" on my phone, because I type ABS all the time, it comes up as abs. So I'll be like, I'm hanging abs streaming, and it's like, what is he doing? What is he doing? It's a funky little autocorrect. Okay. Let's actually highlight this side right here. Just want to make a couple changes to his legs. There we go. Big bags, busting comics, horror stuff. Right? Give him a Give him a really like fancy Gucci bag or something. All right. Okay. So with kneecaps, I like to kind of make them look like little shields. I don't know. That sticks with me, and it seems to work. There we go. All right, let's give him some thicker back legs. There we go. Kind of bring that. There we go. Okay. Let's finish this hand a little bit, and then let's merge it to the other side. I'm actually going to go really low with the intensity, and then I'm going to go alpha 6 to kind of help soften without smoothing. Okay. Now what we're going to do, let's do this. Because we have Dynamesh, I'm going to go ahead and clip this off. I'm going to go ahead and delete hidden. Where are you? Modify topology, delete hidden, close holes. Let's go here. I'm actually going to highlight this portion. Let's grab that right there. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to Control-Shift-D, duplicate the whole body. Come back, make that a single mesh. Come here, let's hit solo. I'm going to grab his hand. Go ahead and delete hidden. Close holes. Now what I'm going to do is actually take his hand, put it completely on the other side, because we're going to mirror and weld it. Hit mirror and weld, which will duplicate his hand and flip it around. And now I want this one. Go ahead and delete hidden. Bring this back. Now we have a second hand to work with. Something like such. I'm actually going to go ahead and clip off this area. Delete hidden, close holes. Take the move brush. Great. Make sure I didn't have backface mask turned on. Select this model, bring this in. So in normal ZBrush, you might have, you know, like a mirror function under, you know, your subtool master, but we don't have that in ZBrush Core. So that's a way to get around that. If you want to duplicate something to the other side, and you didn't work on the left side going right traditionally. So that's one way to do it. Let's bring that in. There we go. Now we can end up merging that together, and we got two hands that are pretty close to being finished. Same thing as we have these nails, but these are the wrong nails now. We want these ones. So we're going to go ahead and Control-Shift-D to duplicate, and same process. Go ahead, bring that over. Mirror and weld it. Grab that. Delete hidden. No need to close holes. Now we can bring this over. Start working with that a little bit. Easiest way to make a hole, specifically a peg hole for a Head of a toy figure. The easiest way to do it is in full ZBrush. I usually don't do that in core, but easiest way would be to use live boolean. This is core. I need to go back to ZBrush. So let's just do this on this action figure. Easiest way to make now are we talking an articulated joint, or are we talking just like a keyed joint? Hello, Gaming Mania. How you doing? You just realize I'm 5 minutes behind. Yeah, YouTube gets a little behind sometimes. I would use live boolean, and let's just go ahead and take a polysphere. Just to give you an example real quick. So the easiest way to make a hole into anything would be just have your cutting tool underneath your main tool and set it to subtract, which is that little key right there. Usually it's set here. Subtract, turn on live boolean, and now you can cut. That's cloth. Don't do that. Transpose. Now you can cut into it. And then you can, of course, do this with plane. So if you want to actually make something for 3D printing, for example, let's turn that one off. Let's do a quick how to build your own key cutter. So you go insert plane 3D. So this is normal ZBrush now. I'm gonna reconstruct a few times. Technically articulated, yes. Articulation is a pretty nifty one. So, how much time have we got? Okay. Let me show this method, and then I'll show you how you should start trying for articulation. Okay, here we go. This is going to take a little bit. All right. So to make a simple key, what I recommend is you start with a plane and reconstruct it down so that you have something like this. We're going to use Z Modeler. And this is full ZBrush, by the way. You can't do this in ZBrush Core. So we hit B, Z, and then M for Z Modeler. And then we're going to turn on X for symmetry. And we're just going to hold Alt and highlight a square like that. Okay? Going to hover over this edge. We're going to make sure that we're going to extrude polygroups all. I'm going to drag that out. Tap Alt to change polygroups. Something like that. Going to go ahead. Now we're going to highlight this front part by masking that off. So we're going to mask this front part off, then invert it. Turn off symmetry. Send your gizmo to the top and scale that down just a little bit so it's tapered. From here, we're going to go ahead and just give some edge loop support. We can do this one of two ways. You can either do edge loop support, or you can go even further, crease and crease by polygroups. And when you subdivide or use dynamic, it's going to actually generate something like this. For tutorial purposes, I'm going to kind of cut that down just a little bit and say that this is going to be fine. But I would recommend that you take ZModeler and add some edge loops. Give yourself just a little bit of geometry on some of the outer edges, just so you can retain your shape as best as you can, okay? That way you can subdivide when need be. Same by the areas here. Now, to use this to cut what we're going to do is we're actually going to give it some thickness because we're working on a single-sided geometry because it's just a normal plane. I'm going to go ahead and actually go to Dynamics Subdivision, turn that on, and apply some thickness. Okay, so we have something like that, and hit apply. So we're good to go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put our thing that we're cutting into a folder. So Control F, call it Cut Test. And then we're going to go ahead and take our key that we just created. and we're going to go ahead and find a place where to cut this. Let's say we want to cut his torso in half. We're going to go ahead and rotate this 90 degrees, bring this up, bring this in. This is where transpose comes into play. You can then kind of scale this where you need it to be. So now it's cutting all the way around. Make sure it's completely in his body. It's looking pretty good. Okay. Turn off transpose. Now we're going to come up to our folder, and we're going to make sure that the thing we're cutting's on top, and our cutting tool is underneath it. Turn that to cut and have live boolean on. And now we can see we're cutting our model. So of course this is for just basic 3D printing cutting. Then we'll come up to our folder and say boolean folder. Once that cuts, if you did it right, you'll be seeing that you have a cut in the middle. You then go to polygroups and you go to auto groups. If it's cut completely clean, it will take your mesh and put it into 2 groups. And now you have your 3D print breakup. You got your legs and your torso completely separated. So that's for 3D printing. For articulation. Okay. What I'm going to tell you guys is I highly, 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 highly recommend that you guys watch the ZBrush Summit 2019, I think it is. I'm going to show you how I do it, but if you type in Hasbro ZBrush Summit and you click this one right here, there's an amazing artist named Paul Bennett, and this is where I learned how to articulate in ZBrush, but I'm going to go over it right now, and then that's going to wrap up the stream. So I'm going to preface when I start this by saying that articulation is completely custom 100% of the time in my experience. With articulation, the thing to remember is that you want to preserve as much of the sculpt as possible while retaining as much mobility. There's a lot of engineering involved in this, so it's not something that you're going to learn overnight. It's going to take a lot of practice, and even those who have done it a bunch of times, including myself, you're going to fail. It's not going to be pretty, but you just keep practicing it, and you just going to try your best. If you're going to test articulation, do not test in resin printing. Test in FDM first. It's a little bit more forgiving. Once you get the basics down, and then start moving to resin printing. That's where a lot of my recent failures have come into play. Most of the time, articulation is the materials for action figures are PVC, ABS. So those materials are usually injection mold, and the tolerances are a little bit more forgiving. Resin 3D printing is very accurate. So there's a lot there. So just remember that what I show you now is not 100% gospel. It's just a way you can approach it. I highly recommend you guys watch that ZBrush Summit one because I learned so much from it. But that being said, let's get into some articulation. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up, I'm going to re-pull up this figure. And before I get too far into it, let me just save this real quick, because we did a lot of work today. I'm really happy with it. Bloop. There we go. So we did a lot of work today with him, and we'll continue him next week. Let's save this, and I'll just shut this down for now. Okay. What's 3D printer for FDM? So we're looking at like an Ender 3 Creality, a Prusa MK2, I think. So anything that uses filaments is considered FDM. Is ZBrush Artist career good or not? How much can they earn? So ZBrush Artist, that's too narrow. ZBrush is an industry standard, so look more at like digital sculpting, character creation, environment artists. ZBrush is used in a wide range of industries. So depending on where you want to go with your career will determine what you can make. I know that's not a super popular answer, but it varies depending on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to get into, just hobby stuff, you can freelance for pretty, low rates. But if you're trying to get in with a studio, then it's dependent on what you do. The more you can do as an artist, the more you can ask for, I guess would be the rule of thumb. But yeah, it's not a solid, oh, you're gonna make, $50, $60, $70,000 a year. It's not a guaranteed like that. It's all dependent on what you can do, what your portfolio, and also what studio you're trying to get into. So it is a wide range. I've worked for as little as a couple $100, and I've done as much as a few grand per project. It just depends. Yeah. Most of my stuff comes from freelancing studios and private freelance. So my figures have bounced all over the place before too. So, but I would say kind of map out what you want to do for a career, and then look at what you could possibly earn within that. Like a lighting artist is not going to earn the same as a technical artist. An animator won't make the same as a rigger. So it just depends on where you want to be. Okay, articulation. So I'm going to start off by saying that articulation is basically built off of cylinders, circles, cylinders, spheres. Yeah, that's pretty much like cylinders, spheres. That's what articulation is based off of. Think of just anything that moves, anything that pivots. Like, I have fingernail clippers, right? This pivot right here, this would be considered an articulated if it was an arm. So based on that, everything's kind of revolving around a cylinder or a sphere, a disc of some sort. So we have to kind of figure out how to build that first and then go from there. Articulation is mathematical, so you want to also kind of set scale on things. But for tutorial purpose, I'm just going to go over how to basically start approaching it. And like I said, watch that video for the ZBrush Summit. But if you want to make your own articulated joints, I'm going to show you the basic like the basic barbell joint that can be used. So let's go ahead and get into it. Can ZBrush be used to create and 3D print dresses and accessories? Oh yeah, there's a lot of things you can do for cosplay. Anything you could 3D print is going to be mostly solid, not flexible. While there is flexible materials out there, generally, like wristbands, swords, bracelets, knives, masks, stuff like that. Yeah, you can do a lot of cosplay stuff in development in ZBrush. Absolutely. Okay. So first, let's start with making a sphere. Boom, we made a sphere. Okay. Let's fill this out. I'm going to take the sphere and I'm going to pivot it. So it comes in like this. I'm actually going to rotate this around to 90 degrees so that I have an easier time working with this. And what we're going to do is think of this sphere as the shoulder. Okay? Like this is the best way to think about it. So, but I want to basically have a pivot point, okay? So I need the shoulder to be able to rotate around, but I'm also going to want motion happening at, so I want the shoulder to be able to rotate up, but I also want it to be able to pivot. So shoulder, if it's a ball joint of sort, you're going to want that rotation. So let's start creating the disc first. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on symmetry. I'm actually going to go ahead and just kind of clip off this section right here so that I can make a disc that will actually do the rotation within that shoulder so that that arm can move. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and what I'm going to do is grab this split hidden. If I come back to the sphere, right, I have this part here. I'm actually going to, sorry, let's go back a little bit. Let's delete this one. So I want to split hidden so I have the disc by itself. And I'm going to rely on the history a lot to then back up, so then I can just isolate that disc in that section. Okay, so one more time, what I did was I grabbed this disc, this sphere, I rotated it 90, turned on symmetry, I isolated the center of it. I then split off, so I have the disc by itself as another subtool, and then I basically Control Z, go back, so I have the disc again. I'm going to polygroup that, so then I know where I was the last time. Okay? If I lose some of you guys, it's okay, this will be recorded. So now I have this right here, all right? And what I'm going to do with this, I'm actually going to go ahead and close holes. So I'm going to go to Geometry, Modify Topology, and I'm going to close holes. Where are you? Bloop. Okay, great, wonderful. So now I have this. Now, typically when you're trying to articulate something, you want like at least like, if I had to put a number on it, I think you would probably want about, you know, like 0.2 to 0.3 millimeter spacing between the moving parts so that they can actually move. I usually set mine at about 0.1 to 0.2 millimeter, around there. So that way it moves and there's space for it to move but still hold. Do I have an articulate part? I do, yes. So I'm going to go big screen for a second. So we're actually going to transition over. So like with this articulated Vegeta head, right? There's a ball joint. It's probably a little hard to see. Zoom in. So it's a ball joint, but then there's also, as I drop it, don't mind me. So on the back side, you can actually see that there's a little bit of a, might be a little hard to see, but there is a disc back there. That disc is what we're creating that allows that up and down movement. And then the ball joint allows it to pivot. So we're basically just going to be making that disc with that ball on it. Let's go back. Okay. So here we go. So this is the disc that's going to pivot. And right now what we want to do is I'm going to duplicate this guy. Okay. I'm going to isolate this inside. And I'm actually going to go ahead and delete hidden and close holes, kind of keeping that separate just a little bit right there. So if I turn on, if I turn off solo and I have this, see, this will fit right on the inside. Right? But this is super tight spacing. So if we come back here, solo this out for a second, we can either measure by units by taking our transpose tool. So we grab our gizmo, hit Y, and then we can actually measure with our transpose tool about 1 unit or so, 0.1 units. Again, we can get into scaling and stuff later, but you would want to make sure there's enough space there. So this is just kind of the down and dirty version of how to get started. From there, what we're going to want to do is actually, so we see we still have our other sphere here. What we're going to want to do here is actually start creating the barbell joint itself. So I'm going to hover on top. I'm going to grab just the basic IMM brush. Going to grab the cylinder. And we're just going to draw our cylinder right on top. And we'll just kind of scale that down. Send that home for a second. So it's right in the middle. We want everything to be right in the middle. There we go. So I'm going to have this right here. And just to have edge loops, because I grabbed the one without edge loops, I'm just going to go ahead and add some edge loops to that. Perfect. I'm going to go back to my IMM primitive, so BIT. I'm going to grab a sphere. This is going to be our barbell joint. There we go. So this would typically be your barbell joint, okay? Now, right now, we haven't set any measurements, all that stuff we figure out later, but to just get the construction process started, this is what we would do. Then what we're going to end up doing is start creating a pen joint, right? A place where we're going to have yeah, it's basically a plumbus right now. So then we're going to basically add a hole where it's going to pivot, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and insert a cylinder. And again, we'd have to size this all out, but I'm just going to stretch this down. So this would be right about there, right in the center. And the reason why I pivoted this so that the poles were facing outside is so that way I can make sure that the pin is perfectly in the middle where we want it. Okay. Now we have to cut this so that it becomes a joint, right? We just kind of set up the overall look, but we need it to be functional. So this is where we're going to start making some decisions. So the first thing we're going to do is actually take this plumbus looking barbell, and we're going to kick that down here. We're going to put it in a folder and call this our disc joint, or disc barbell joints. Okay. And then we're going to take this pen and put this inside the folder. And then we're going to set this pin to cut. So we have this. Okay. And then from here we come around and boolean that folder. And now we have this disc. Now, what you would want to do normally, but we are running out of time, is that we would take this disc and, add like a millimeter or so offset so that when it cuts, it would actually slide right through. But like I said, check out that YouTube video for a super in-depth of it. But then what we're going to do is we're going to do the exact same thing with this ball that we started with. Now, we started with this ball, right? This is where the shoulder would be. So I'm actually going to duplicate this, Control-Shift-D. I'm going to bring this down to its own folder. I'm also going to copy this pen that we used to cut. So Control-Shift-D. And I'm going to drag that down. And then I'm going to duplicate this barbell disc, okay? Because we're going to use this as a cutter too. And we're going to bring that down. Now this is where renaming is going to save you. So we're going to call this the, call this the shoulder joint ball. Just so we know what it is. Now let's put this in a folder. Okay. Bring the pen and we're going to bring the rest in there. Turn this off. Make sure solo's not on. Now, normally before we cut, we'd actually apply this area to the shoulder. But what we would do is we'd actually set a lot of this to cut. And you see how you're getting some weird warpage right here? With this, we're using this to cut because we'd actually kind of scale this up a little bit. So that way it'd be a perfect fit on the inside. And then we'd cut this merge folder. So now we're going to have this pin in here. Actually, I went a little too fast on that. Let's actually take the pin out. Let's cut the pin separate. Let's turn the pin off. See, this is where that trial and error kind of comes into play. There we go. So we make this cut. You see how this is cutting this kind of pin shape in here. Typically what we could do is, let's back this up a second. You'd actually take the one without the hole in the middle. Sorry, I'm moving a little fast. Let's duplicate that one. Let's turn this one. So this one has the hole, let's get rid of that. And let's use the one without the hole. There we go. I'm moving too fast even for me. All right. Turn that all on. There we go. Try that one more time. So take that disc without the hole, and let's actually go ahead and kind of scale that up a little bit. Call that to cut, and call that to cut. So now we have this shape that we're going for. And Boolean that folder. Does all 3D printer resin smelling? For the most part, yes. There are some that don't smell nearly as bad as others, but for the most part, simple answer, yes. It's also toxic for you to breathe in directly, so make sure you have proper ventilation. Okay. So you can see here, now we have 3 parts, okay? We have the connecting piece, which would technically be the shoulder. We then have the disc that it would go into, and then the pin. And these all fit together. This is your basic starting point of articulation. What we could do then is, for tutorial purposes, we're going to merge that down to each other like this. Turn on our main part. And so now we would actually fit this to where we would want this to be. So ideally, we would want the pen to be at a spot that makes sense. So we would start fitting this joint like such, and making sure that this fits correctly, and scaling it and sizing it and trying to get it to get a decent shape. What we would want to do is actually cut this arm off, typically. So we'd take something like the slice curve and actually slice that down. Delete lower, slice that, so that we're working with just this arm. We can actually say split hidden. Then from here we can take the joint and match it to where we think it needs to be and start making our cutting positions. So again, as you can see, guys, it's pretty technical already. And so there's a lot to go into it, but kind of just your typical like breakdown of how you would start articulation. Again, it's a lot of trial and error, and unfortunately there's not a whole lot of classes out there. I wish there was. So, but hopefully that was helpful, even just a little bit. I know that was a lot of information I just like threw at all of you. But what I say, like I said, go back, watch that video. It's a great resource. It's probably one of the best resources out there. The other thing I recommend doing so that you can understand more of what I'm doing is do yourself a favor and grab yourself a Batman. Go to the store, and you don't care about this toy. And, heat them up, pop them off, and actually take apart your toys. And then take a look see how this barbell, just like what we built, that's in there. And then that's the hole that it pops into. And so that's really what you want to kind of try to recreate as best you can. and then you pop it in. The video I'm referring to is... Here, hold on. This one right here. It was actually done at a ZBrush summit. It's by Paul Bennett. Super great information on articulation. And one of my go-to references anytime I'm like trying to figure something out. He did a great breakdown. I'm also doing, let's see, thanks for the great info. I'm just doing a head sculpt though. They can fit in themselves on the body they want. Yes, yeah. If you're just doing a head sculpt and you want to create a joint, you know, this is my go-to joint. Because this could be your neck. In fact, here, check this out, guys. Let's load up. Let me load up something for you. And then we're going to take off. Nobody streams after me, so I know I can run over a little bit. Let's see here. Vegeta collectible, articulated. Here we go. Okay. Okay. So here's my Vegeta articulated that I tried to print in resin, but it failed a lot. So I'm still like kind of finessing it a bit. But you can see here's the ball joint. Here's the head. How it fits into that spot. So you can see here with the shoulder piece, how that all fits into play. So how this all connects together is based off of those. Should probably just print this in FDM and see if that works the way I want it to. But yeah. Yep, that's actually a great idea too, randomly generated. That's the next step in my printing, is just going ahead and just printing the joints in FDM. That's a great point. Yeah. It's a lot of testing. I did it all in resin first, didn't work out. So next step was FDM. But no, great idea. So yeah, this is the Vegeta I'm still working on. But I put him on hold because I'm working. So anyway, guys, all right, that is it for today. Thank you guys so much. Hopefully this was super informative, or at least helpful in the slightest. Thank you so much, so much. Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna flesh this out. It's taken me a lot of time, but we be working on it for sure. So, but all right, guys, if you're watching this after the stream and you made it this far, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and follow and stuff like that. Really appreciate it. But also, too, guys, if you're here, you're new to Pixologic, the makers of ZBrush, please hit the subscribe, follow, do all that good stuff, because there are tons of artists that come here and stream from all different parts of the industry. Some of my favorites are, you know, like AQ, Shane Olson, Mike Thompson. There's just Paul DC's here, like Paul Gabry, like so many great people stream here all the time. Like there's so many amazing artists. So make sure that you follow and subscribe. I am on at this time every week, so every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's when I'm live, so if you want to come back, please hang out with me. But also, too, if you want to see my other stuff, please definitely check out my socials. I really, really appreciate it. Thanks. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, slight shifts of wrapping the prints and resin overexposure can mess my articulation up as well. It really does, Ryan, yeah. And that's why articulation with resin is so difficult, because anything can throw off the precision that you need. And I've noticed that there's a lot more science in articulation than some people would think. Some really cool stuff. So it's like never ending. What do I prefer, printing or PLA or resin? I love both. Honestly, I love both. In fact, guys, if you do, if you do join my Patreon, not to toot my own horn here, but I have the Sub-Zero sculpture that is both resin and PLA. He's resin, base is PLA. I love both. It has its purpose. This is now available on my Patreon for tier 2. If you guys don't mind supporting, you get this and a bunch of other statues. Let me know. Anyway, guys, all right, that is it. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate everything, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye!